All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of See You on the Other Side. Today, Leah and I are joined by Jenny Shanks. She is a medium here in Louisville, Kentucky. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, guys.
So excited to have you.
I'm so excited too.
Before you got here, I told Christine I was like so nervous about this
She was like pacing.
because I know now, but I think what did I say? I said it's a little bit intimidating to have someone on when you have like seen them in a different way, and I was like looking up to you like
Aww.
I mean I still do, but it was
I'm so your backcountry girl. Like I'm like it's when you say that I'm like, oh, that sometimes makes me feel really uncomfortable because it's like I'm just Jenny. Like when people are like, tell me about yourself, I'm like, well, I live on the river,
Which is what I was going to ask.
like literally, like because I feel like when we say all these attributes about ourselves, it's like these things that are covering who we like. They're makeup to who we are, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm just Jenny. Like, and there's layers of me. Like, which layer do you want today? Like, And so I always struggle when people say, "Tell me about yourself," because I'm like, well, what do you want to know? I mean, I'll tell you, but what do you want to know?
right. It's interesting because when I said that, I was like, I don't know, she just feels so big.
Oh,
And then you said people say that about us too.
yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, you're right. Like,
We're
and it's
just
still,
us.
it's really weird.
And we're just us.
You're
Yeah.
exactly right. It's like, I'm just Leah. Like,
Yeah.
I am, but I'm not like, I'm just Leah, but it's not just.
Right.
It's never just.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
just are.
so many layers. Like I don't know where to begin to tell you about myself other than I'm Jenny. Like,
Well, let's start with this.
Yeah.
Go into what you do. I've never been to a medium. We were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. So I'm going to ask questions from a very curious place that I've never experienced before. So
okay, so simple answer is I talk to the people who've passed away. Like I bring, and I think the logical way to say this is I bring spirits through, but really the reality is they're right here. It's just, I describe spirits as when you see a fan and it's turned off and you see the blades, that's a human. Right. When we turn the fan on full speed and we can't see the blades anymore, that's your spirit. And so, but they're right here with us. They're literally right here with us. So yes, I use the word heaven. Yes, I move my hand up like we're going upstairs, like because people identify with that. But my belief is that they're just literally right here in this room with us. That's why when people say like, oh, I felt them, like I felt them near me. It's like, well, yeah, because they are. They're right here with you. So short answer is that's what I do. Long answer is I have discovered over the many years that all along I've been able to have this connection with spirit. And I have this deep understanding of my passion is our loved ones who have crossed. The psychic piece to mediumship is like me tuning into your energy and saying, okay, this is what's going on in your life. And, here's some guidance here. I don't love that as much as I love our past loved ones because, we have such a human connection that we deeply miss when we lose someone. And so when I experienced my first reading was through my grandpa coming through. And in that moment, I was like, if I can offer that to anyone else, that's all that matters. That's all that matters to me. So I don't really love the people who want to know if they're going to get married or get another job or any of that. Because I'm like, dude, you need some major fucking work on yourself if you have to come to me to answer those questions. Like, just like believe in yourself and fucking do it. Meanwhile, like, let's talk to someone that you miss. Like, that's really my passion.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
So I have lost people in my life, but I wouldn't like. I saw what on your website what you wrote about your grandfather, and you seem to have had a really deep connection with him. I didn't have that kind of connection with a lot of people that maybe was a family member that passed away. So somebody like me, are they going to have maybe the same kind of reading?
Oh, you'll always have a spirit come through. Now, whether you identify with that spirit, sometimes I'll have readings with clients that they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then they go home and talk to friends or family, and they're like, holy shit, that was, my great aunt or something like that. So there are times that spirits come through that people don't understand who they are in that exact moment. You'll always have a spirit come through. Now, whether you want to hear from that spirit or whether some people will be like, I don't even know why they would come through for me. And it's like, well, don't miss the message. Like, don't miss the experience because you're already judging what spirit's coming through.
Right.
Like, you've already put up a wall at this point. So, yeah, you'll always have someone come through, whether you want to hear from them, whether you understand who they are in the beginning, or whether they shock you to the point that you're like, what? Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Can we talk about my experience with her?
Yeah.
Just to kind of give like a preface of kind of what happened. So I'm kind of like you. I haven't really had a desire to see a medium. Like, nobody that I've had in my life whose past has been somebody who I was like so connected to and so wanting to speak to. I've lost some people, but it's never been like, oh, I have to connect with them somehow. So seeing you at my first Saturdays with Spirit back in, I think that was like May, maybe April or May. I signed up with you because there was a spot open. I was like, oh, we'll see how this goes.
Damn, you got that spot.
I did. I'm sorry I took your spot. But, it was more of like a curiosity than a desire or a need. So I'm like, yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I sit down and the thing that came up almost immediately was an aunt who had passed. And were able to tell me down to a T, like how she died. And I wasn't close with her. I was close with my uncle, her husband, who had passed away also. But like, I was so like, how did she know that? That's wild. So 7-8 years ago, my uncle passed away. His wife died in her sleep a few months later. And everybody was like, it was a broken heart. And I remember you saying like, she's holding her heart, but it wasn't a heart attack or anything. And then you said, you know how sometimes people say you can die of a broken heart. And I was like, shut the fuck up.
I've got chills.
Like, that's Joni. That's my Aunt Joni. Like, what is she doing here? So anyway, there's like a whole story to this. So I don't want to like go too much into it. But you also said, she was saying like, there's something for you in Sedona.
Have you gone?
I went.
You did?
I did. But what's crazy about that is I had been wanting to go for a while. And we haven't really talked about this yet, but I had like a secret divorce fund. And when my husband got sober, we've talked about this on the episode. When my husband got sober, I was like, what am I going to do with all this money that I've been like secretly putting away? So I was like, I'm going to spend it on a trip for the two of us. Like, it's going to be a celebration trip. And so I came home and I was like, I can't tell you how I know this, but I think we need to go to Sedona. And he's like, okay. Like, one of those, like, just trust me on this. And then after that, we were like sitting at Blaze one night with our kids eating dinner, and a song came on and I Shazammed it. And the name of the song was Sedona. And like everything after that was just like more and more and more, like calling us to it. So we went to Sedona in July.
Yeah.
In July. And I might get super emotional. Oh, who am I fucking kidding? What does my shirt say?
I cry
a lot.
It's fitting.
It's true.
It's fitting.
So we haven't talked about this on the episode yet because we wanted to in something separate, but I'm just going to bring it up. Like in Sedona, I did a breathwork session and re-experienced and remembered a very traumatic miscarriage that I had like 11 years ago, something that I hadn't thought about in 11 years. Came back from that trip having processed that, had a session with Erica and connected with him. And this is where it freaked my husband out because I'm like, I saw our child, He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is crazy. Like, you're telling me you see like dead people. And I'm like, no. I'm not a medium. But like, I think that being with Erica in that moment allowed me to be, this is going to sound fucking wild, but like, I was able to see what she saw. Like, I was like, she was a portal for me.
You got out of your own way. You got out of your human way. Because we're, we identify, you think about this, like growing up, it's like, oh, they're ghosts. Oh, they're that, and that's scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so we avoid things that are uncomfortable or scary. And so all she did was help facilitate getting you out of your own way so you can experience what you needed to experience in that moment.
It was just wild to me because what you were saying earlier, spirit's always with us. Like, I really feel that now. I'm like, they're always here, but there are few people, maybe not a few, but there are people who have access to it, like you. And that's a gift. And I have a lot of friends who say that they have these abilities, but they're afraid of it. I'm like, that's a gift that you have, and you're so afraid to talk about it because of what other people will think of you.
Yeah.
So I guess what I want to ask you is like, how long you've known you've had this gift and how it came to you using it.
So, well, looking back now, like for a really long time, as a kid, there's experiences I had that I'm like, oh, now that makes sense. That makes sense. It was when I was 16 though, when my grandpa passed, that I felt his passing, and I went to share it with friends, and they're like, that's not normal, Jenny. That's not normal. And so I was like, oh, shit.
What do you mean you felt his passing?
Like, I was in trigonometry, sitting down. He was in the nursing home. We knew he was in the final stages of dying. And I just started to doodle, like, you're going to be with grandma soon. Everything's going to be fine. And I got really emotional, and I looked up at the clock, and it said 3:15, and it was like this weight, like just bricks on my shoulder lifted. And I was like, you're at peace. And then my dad would wait for me to get home because he was like very ill very quickly. So like we would literally come home every day after school and go up to the nursing home. Well, he was in the hospital and then the nursing home. And I got home and my dad wasn't there. And I knew, I was like, oh, yeah, he's passed. And my dad starts to walk up the stairs. I hear him come home and I go to meet him, and he's just bawling, this big 350-pound guy who doesn't, police officer, doesn't show emotion, nothing. And he goes, your grandpa died. And I go, I know. He goes, what do you mean you know? And I go, I felt it. And like, interestingly enough, my dad totally understood it. Like, he never questioned it. My mom was more of one that was like, something wrong with you? Have you been taking drugs? Like we need to go get her drug tested, like very concerned. And my dad just got it. Hindsight's 2020. I think my dad, being a police officer for so long, just had this intuitive nudge, just knowing when things weren't right or when things were, he needed to go investigate basically. And I think, they just thought this was like the police officer in him, when really I think it was this deep intuition that he had and never understood. And so when in that moment at 16 years old, it's like he heard me say that and he goes, wow. He goes, yeah, I kind of felt it too. And that was it. We never talked about it again. My dad's an alcoholic. The majority of his life, he covered it up with drinking. So I think any slight emotion of intuition was suffered by his drinking. And now, he's proudly recovered, but on pain medication. So whatever, he took one drug for another.
Substituted.
And it's all, it's all legal because the doctor gives it to him now. So like any moment of my dad peeking into this intuition and this connection with spirit has been clouded by his addiction for his entire life. But there will be moments that he has. It's like, damn, you experienced that same thing I did when it came to losing. It was his dad who we lost.
So when you said earlier to Leah, like you just had to get out of your own way, I was like, what does that mean? Is that kind of what you mean? Like,
yeah. Well, or stop judging yourself. Like, how many times do you have a moment of like intuitive hits and then immediately before you ever take action, you judge it? You go, oh, but what if? But what if this, okay, if I do this, even though this feels right and I know it's the right thing to do, logically it's either not, or if I do it, what will people think? Or
the pushback I'll get.
Yeah, like the judgment, the fear, the like other people's opinions, all of that. And like, that's because you allow other people to get in your way. And if you just allow yourself the boundary and control to get out of your own way, then it's like, fuck them.
Yeah.
In the nicest, loving way, but fuck them.
Right.
Like, you know, like, I'm not here for you to dump your shit on me. Like, I'm working on myself. Like, I got to get out of my own way. And if that means I need to clear you, then I'll clear you. Like,
so your mom kind of doubted that. So at what point, so did you just try to suppress it then?
Oh, yeah. I suppressed it because you had your mom and then your friends, and you were 16 years old, right? And like, I struggled. I mean, I had terrible acne. You know, I didn't play sports. All my girlfriends did. I was not comfortable in a bathing suit. Like, you know, there was just all these like human factors as a girl that age that like, oh, now there's one more thing to add to the list of like why people are judging you. And so I just, pushed it away. And so I met my husband. We had gotten married. Like, this was like 10, 15 years later. And my family did a group reading. And so my mom did come to it. It was like one of my aunt and cousins coordinated it. And most of the family came. There were a couple of our, you know, outliers, the judgers, that didn't. And then that's when my grandpa came through in that reading. So he had been passed for, you know, well over 10 years at this point. And at the end, one of the mediums came up and said, "Who's Jennifer?" And I was like, that would possibly be me. What do you mean?
Depends on what you're asking for.
If it's good, it's definitely me. If it's bad, I don't know.
And so she was just like, your grandpa's coming through. And she said some things I didn't fully understand, but she was like, he keeps saying, stop denying your gifts. And I was like, okay, what could that be? And at the same time, I had started a new job working where I was traveling all the time. And so I had gone from being at home to traveling, and that was like a big change on my marriage. That was really hard. Like, my husband, you know, he's 15 years older than me. So he's different generations, different mindset. And it was like, oh, you're gone all the time. Oh, you're out to dinner all the, you know, oh, you're going out with the doctors. Like, and so I remember having this conversation with my grandpa. Well, I thought it was with myself. Lo and behold, it was with my grandpa in the car driving between here and Nashville. And I was just like, I've got to book a session. This was like 6 months after the reading. I was like, I've got to book a session because I need to know, like, should I just back out of this marriage now? Be done with it? Like, fuck this. Like, I don't need him putting pressure on me while I'm already trying to do my job. Or do I, you know, so I went to talk to my grandpa because I needed guidance. But I was like, it's with him. Like, I need him. I don't care what the medium says. I care what he says. And so I sat down, and immediately he used to wear this gold necklace that was like a gold nugget on the end, which from what I understand is like a combination of melted rings between him and my grandma that he would wear. Oh. And she goes, there's some like gold, like an egg shaped thing. And I mean, I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, tell me more. Okay, I know who it is. What do you have to say? And she literally recited almost to verbatim the words that I was saying when I was in the car by myself that day. And ultimately, like, it was him coming through saying, like, honor your gifts and, like, it's okay. This is just a hump in your marriage. You have to learn this flow. Like, you know, don't give up. Don't surrender to, like, whatever he needs, but also don't give up in this journey. Like, find this medium of coming together. And so I went back home, and that day he was like, you're in a great mood. I was like, yeah, talk to my dead grandpa. You're not going to believe everything he said. And I just like, and then I was like, okay, so also he said that I'm a medium, and here's the deal. It's going to be really fucking hard to divorce me at this point in the game. I mean, I was just like on this high, like a total high. And Brian was like, do whatever you need, babe. Like, I'll support you. And that was kind of like the lady was like at the end, like, I can mentor you, which I thought was the funniest thing. I thought, like, how in the hell do you mentor a medium? Like, what I now realize is she was just guiding me to understand what was coming through and, like, how to process it. She's not, like, necessarily being like, you know, okay,
this is how you do it.
Right. Like, yeah. So anyways, I started that journey. And I literally, when I signed up with her to mentor, I thought, you know, if anything comes out of this, maybe I'll talk to some of my relatives on the other side. Like, what a magical experience for a few weeks, you know? And that started the journey of, like, this where I am today, basically.
I know.
Yeah. You're very like, hard to get into.
You're so hard to get into.
You've definitely made like a name for yourself, and because you're legit. Like, that's, I don't want to say that's the scary thing, but you know, I've gone to people who are like at parties and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I had a friend who used to throw a Halloween party every year, and she would have somebody there doing that. I have never. Like, I walk out of those like, okay, that was fun. You know, they're very baseline. And so I do think that there are a lot of people out there who aren't doing what you do, but selling themselves to do it. And so that turns a lot of people away because you hear all these stories and you're like, yeah, that's not real.
Yeah.
But I've never heard that with you.
I hope not. I mean, I am deeply devoted to like my connection with spirit. I have a very ritualistic process with them, and like I want to honor them as much as I want them to trust me and channeling. And like I'm very particular. When I hear about shitty things like that, I get real irritated because it's like, because it's not just disrespecting spirit, but it's also disrespecting the human that's broken in front of you that is coming to you for some hope.
Yeah.
And you're fucking with their life. And that just sets me way over the edge.
Oh, I would be pissed.
Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole, those people. But I also feel like, you know what, that's their journey. And like more, like I'll say to my students, they'll be like, well, this medium did this. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I would recommend. But like, you got to set your own ethics and your own boundaries. And so you figure out what that is. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to do and how to be. I'm just telling you from my experience, this is what I would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so the way that she has like kind of taken that gift and used it and sat with it. It's interesting you say like your dad, you know, kind of numbed it for a long time, because in the empath book that we have, like it says that too. A lot of empaths will start using alcohol and drugs to numb it because they know they're different. They know there's something about them, but it's not, nobody else understands it.
Right.
So they think there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not encouraged.
Yeah.
Right.
Oftentimes.
Yeah. It's not loved, right? Like, it's like, oh God. I mean, I remember I was in 5th grade. I'll never forget this. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but it was some woo-woo experience. And I was telling my mom, and my mom called. I remember my dad traveled, and I would always like, you know, this is when he had landlines. You could pick up the phone and listen to the conversation.
Just drop.
Yeah.
You're like, I can hear.
And my mom's on the phone with my dad. He's somewhere in the world. And she's like, listen, this thing happened with Jennifer today, and I am concerned, and we need to talk. My godmother, quote unquote, was a doctor. We need to talk to her. They took me in and had my hair cut for drug testing, and it came back nothing. And I was like, what now? No, like, but those moments were so traumatizing for me as a kid. Cause like,
oh my God,
I loved my hair. And like, what do you mean you think this is wrong with me? I'm just telling you these things. And like, my mom was convinced that like I was on something. Cause I would, if I could foresee something happening, like, okay, we're going to get in the car and I know a wreck's going to happen. And I would tell her, and she'd be like, this is ridiculous, Jennifer. You just don't want to go anywhere. And I'll be like, no, I'm telling you. And then like that would happen. So then I started to figure out if I could throw a big tantrum, then my mom would get irritated and we wouldn't go out, when really all I was doing was protecting the family. So I started to figure out, it was that transition of the tantrum period that I went through that she thought I had somehow gotten on drugs, and like literally chunks of hair to drug tests, and it was insane.
It was almost like you had to change your language.
Yeah. Well, and
because
then
no one was hearing you.
I had to change who I was.
Yeah.
And like, so then I lived a significant period of my life not being comfortable, even in the human issue, like the human skin I already had, I wasn't comfortable in. But then in the soul, the spirit, like I'm being told, no, you're different. You need to stop that. You need to play, you need to play basketball. You need to play tennis. You need to do these things. And it's like, I don't want to fucking do that.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
That's not me.
Yeah.
So how is she now?
I say she loves it. Both of them have accepted it. They're very proud of me. Now, you got to remember, my dad is, one, suppressed the majority of his life. And two, my dad was always one that was like, work hard, save money, work hard, save money, work hard, save money. So when they started to realize that my business was like making more than I was in corporate world, my dad was like, oh, what? Like, and then even through like the pandemic and then inflation and all of that, my dad's like, oh, wow. Okay. My mom is at the point in her life. And interestingly enough, before Brian and I got married, a month before we got married, my mom had a seizure. And she now has seizures that we don't understand why. So, like, I had a friend go, oh, it's like light code activation. And my mom's like, what? Is there a book on that? Like, she doesn't get it. But she's so supportive of it now. And this past year, we lost her sister, who was my aunt, who I was very close with. And that, I think, stimulated some, like, more conversation for my mom of, like, because really, she was the first person in our family who had passed since they lost their dad back in the 70s. Well, and my grandma had passed, but I think their dad died in an accident. And so that was very traumatizing to them. And then we lost my grandma through dementia and Alzheimer's. But I think for my mom, it was like when her sister, like of the siblings, it was her first sibling to pass, that started to ignite more conversation. So she'll ask me things like, well, what is it like when you're talking over there? Or like, what is it, so she's very curious. My dad, on the other hand, I always say it backwards. He'll say, how are your spirit rocks and ghost talk going? And the spirit rocks are crystals, and ghost talks are talking to the spirits. That's what he'll say to me. I'm like, eventually I'm going to have to do something with that phrase, but
Your spirit rocks.
I'll tolerate it for a little bit though.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
But I love how like you talked earlier about how like you want to give people hope. Like they're coming to you because they feel broken. I guess share, because like I said, I've never been in this space, how that can be so healing for somebody. Because we talk about healing with psychedelics and breath work and things like that, but this is a new arena for me.
So I'll share the example, and I feel like it always comes better from someone who's journeyed through it. But like the example of one of my best friends, when we started to become friends, I knew her mom had passed, but I knew nothing about the process. Like we didn't really know each other that well. And so I just, per my mentor's homework, I had to read 3 people. And so I like put on Facebook, like, does anybody want to talk to someone that has crossed over? It's like very like, and I mean, I got all kinds of responses.
What an interesting Facebook status.
Hey guys.
And so she's like, I'll do it. And I felt comfortable with her because we had just kind of formed this friendship. And so I went over to her house, and her mom came through, and all these other things came through. I don't really remember the details, but I remember her going, holy shit, the years that I've spent on therapy do nothing compared to just knowing that my mom is like, you knew nothing about my mom, nothing about her, other than I had a mom who passed. And she said, you pulled things through that like no one, like there was a miscarriage in the family that no one knew about. I mean, things that like no one would have known. And so that moment made me as a medium realize like, well, okay, really, this is real, because I didn't know any of it. And then 2, like, it gave her hope in knowing that her mom's not gone.
Yeah.
Like her loved one's not gone. It's just the human form of her is not here. And so that's the hope that I hope people get. Like I want people to know their loved ones are still very much here, and they're watching over them, and they're loving them, and they're guiding them. And that if we want to say we'll see them again, okay, we'll say that. But like we'll reunite in a way that we can connect with them again at some point in our, when this humanness decides to expire, then like, yeah, we'll be there. And so that's my hope, is just to provide them love and know that their loved ones aren't gone, or they're just gone in a way that we have been taught that they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest piece for me, I think, in healing that miscarriage, was realizing that this child is always with me. It's fucking wild, because you think like, oh, well, he wasn't born yet, so he's just gone. And knowing that he's always been with me, like literally since then, and will always be with me, that there's so much healing in that I'm like, it wasn't for nothing.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it took 11 years for me to figure that out. But I read this book this is so fucking crazy that I'm saying this and realizing right now, on the way to Sedona, I was reading this book, Many Lives, Many Masters. Have you read that? And as I'm reading, I'm like, my husband's got AirPods in, and I'm like poking in him. I'm like, read this. And he's like, oh my God. Like I kept doing it. And he was listening to a podcast, but it was such a healing book. It was about past lives. The psychiatrist in the 80s wrote it about one of his patients who he used hypnotherapy. And in hypnotherapy, she would have all these past life rememberings that she couldn't remember.
Who is this by? Do you remember?
Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss.
No, but I'm reading a book very similar right now.
He has a series now. Like he's written several books since then, but this was his first like, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah.
Because when she was hypnotized, having these past life remembrances, he was recording all of their sessions. And this is before like Google was a thing, but she would have down to every detail of like what she was doing, what she was wearing, the language that they spoke, where they lived. And when she would pass from one life and be waiting for the next one, she had access to like, is this wooey? Is this a little crazy for you? No. She had access to this spirit world, and messages would come through from spirit for him. Wow. And he's this like super duper atheist, scientific psychologist who's like, nope, that stuff doesn't exist. So by the time he finished their sessions together, which I think it was like 18 months of sessions with her, he was like, this is what I need to be doing with my life. I need to be helping people who are grieving, because he was able to connect with the son who had passed away, and just felt so much healing just through helping this person heal, because she had access to something he didn't know existed. There's so much power in that, I think, where people feel lost, or they feel like all these bad things happen to me and nothing good is happening. Right. And then you have this type of reading or connection where it's like, no, I'm here. I'm helping you. You can always reach out to me. You can always talk to me. Yeah. You may not always hear me, but like, I'm always here listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I say like my aunt who passed in May, I mean, we have a series of coins and numbers, and they're all for something. Like there's a series of numbers that's like, okay, she wants to talk to me. Okay, I need to quiet down and listen, see what she wants to say. And then a series of numbers just to let me know she's around. Like we went to Dallas this past weekend to visit a branch of her family. And I mean, that number of letting me know she was around was like non-fucking stop. I was like, and interestingly enough, the kids, my cousin's kids are deeply religious. They know what I do. But we talk more about like life than we do religion or beliefs, like, and so anyways, I finally, and interestingly enough, there's a story about a penny connected to my aunt. It's more than just a penny, but a story about a penny. And everyone in the family on her side knows this story. And Friday night, we're walking around the stockyards in Fort Worth, and the kids are kind of acting weird. And I was like, whatever, like kids are kids, I'll go do my thing. I found a little tea place, and one of the kids and I walked over there, and then we get back to the apartment, and the daughter, Jenna's in the bedroom with my cousin, John. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like, we got to go get dinner, something. And she comes out with a package, and she goes, this is for you. And I go, oh, okay. And I open it up. And when we were at the stockyard shopping, they found a bracelet that had pennies in it. And she bought me. And I just bawled. Because I'm like, this 18-year-old girl was so aware of this story about pennies. And I know that my aunt was their grandma's like, channeling. It was just so emotional in that moment. And it was like, damn, my aunt is here. Like I know my aunt knows everything we're doing. And her grandson, the whole reason we went down was to visit her grandson who had a heart transplant 3 months ago. And like all of that was very emotional, because it's like, I want to just pick up the phone and talk to her. Yeah. And I want her to know, like, I want to be like, oh my God, I know why you love these grandkids so much. We did this and we did that. And every time I had that thought this weekend, bam, her numbers popped up. And I was like, she knows.
She's here.
Yeah, she knows. Like, and we were doing little stuff, nothing major, nothing big. It was just the fact that it's like, I need her there. And like, I think about that, and like, I check out, and it was those numbers. And I'm like, damn, she's good. She's good. And like, I'm proud of her because her and I had this very close bond where I was like, look, when your time comes, if you don't fucking come down quickly and tell me you made it up there, we're going to have some serious conversation.
I'm going to haunt you.
Yeah. And she did. I mean, literally, like within 12 hours of passing, like there was my uncle, her husband who passed 18 years before, would always leave us dimes. And her and I had this whole story about dimes. And so the morning after she passed, I was cleaning the house for the kids from Texas to come in. And I'm moving laundry from the washer to the dryer, and a dime pops out. And I was like, okay, that's great to know you're there, but like, I need to know she's there. I need to know she is with you. And I remember just like yelling that in the house. Like, I love you, Uncle, but I don't care that you're there, And I keep moving this laundry, and all of a sudden a penny flies out. And I connected it as it's his +1 is now in heaven with him. Oh. And so the story of the penny, I mean, so if you find a penny and a dime together, it's like a big thing. So ironically, last week, my friend Beth and I were hosting a sound bath at the farm. And my other cousin and her daughter, which were another extension of my aunt, were coming. And this was the first time anybody really from my family had come to anything. And so I'm setting the event up, and we decided this time we were going to add this tea bar, and I'm moving everything out of the bag, and all of a sudden, 2 penny and 2 dimes fly out. And I was like, oh my God, she knows about, I was just like, oh my God. So I put them up at the front. We made the altar. We like blessed the altar before people got there. And then when those cousins came in, I was like, you all, look. And I was like, these have to be for you. Like, I know she knows that you all are here. So
wild.
That has been like this deep connection for me, because losing my grandpa was traumatic, but I was 16 and I was not a medium. Losing my aunt was really traumatic because it all happened so unexpectedly, and I was very, very close with her, and I was a medium, and I wasn't sure how I would be able to pull out of it. Like, how can I live each day like not having her to talk to, you know?
Right.
And so in any moment that I get emotional or start to think about her, it's like, boom, she's there. She's like, I got it. Like, I'll sometimes even hear her laugh. She had a very, well, our whole family has a wild laugh. But like, I will sometimes hear that and I'm like, okay. Like, you're here. You're here.
That's so wild.
See, I'm like, even a medium needs a little bit of confirmation
100%.
sometimes.
100%.
Well, at the end of the day, she's a human being.
Well,
yeah.
I just spent a weekend with my aunt in Florida, and it was her brother who passed, my uncle. And she always, like, if she sees a penny, she's like, that's Billy.
Yeah.
That's Uncle Billy.
And so many people will write that off. They'll be like, oh, it's a penny. You know, when my aunt passed.
I would be a person to
yeah.
write it off.
I'd be like, throw the coins at her. Like,
Right.
coins. Yeah.
She's not getting the messages.
Yeah.
We need to be more clear.
It's like that meme you posted yesterday.
Yes.
When my aunt passed and we were all at her house later that day, it's just so much shit you have to think about when someone passes away. Like, I mean, like, you got to have underwear for them at the funeral. I was like, underwear? Who gives a shit what's under there? Like, they're going in the ground. Like,
I know what you're going to be wearing.
Yeah. So we're going through her drawers and we're looking for just things that you need. And I think we were in her jewelry dresser. And we opened the bottom drawer and there's bags and bags of coins. And she's written coins from heaven, 2007, coins from heaven. Like, and I was just like, I had no idea. We would always tell each other about the coins. I had no idea she had been collecting these coins basically from the time my uncle died in 2004.
I know I'm wearing a sweatshirt, but like there are so many chills like under all of my layers of clothes.
Yeah.
That's
It's
crazy.
wild. Yeah. So I told one of the kids they better have saved me one of those notes, coins from heaven, like at least a copy of it. 'Cause that was such a deep connection for her and I. Like when we would find coins, we'd be like, there's your uncle, there's your husband.
And then to know that she's been collecting them this whole time. Coins from heaven.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things my uncle did when my uncle came through for my aunt one time and said he was always a prankster.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I love that.
and he would say something like, when the lights go off in your bathroom, that's me.
Oh, I've had that.
And so now it's not
before.
scary anymore.
Yeah.
Like now she's like, okay, Billy, I know you're here. You know?
Yeah. I've had that before where I've even heard him say like, tell him not to change the light bulb or not to change the battery in it. Like, it's just me.
It's
they'll,
just
like,
me.
They'll like call an electrician because the light won't quit flickering. And it's like, no, it's just spirit. Like, yeah. And you think about spirit, I mean, it's all frequency. It's all frequency. And so light is frequency. Music and sound is frequency. Like all of that's frequency. And
Like
it's
in
just
Stranger Things. Like how they, like the lights, they could like speak through the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a little wild. We got to speak in Stranger Things for her. Like, it's not science fiction.
Yeah, I understand Netflix shows. So if you could...
That's our language.
Yeah,
That's our language.
If you could dumb it down to that, that'd be excellent.
Yeah. Another thing I'm like really interested in, and every time I'm like, I'll book a session with her. I'll do it eventually. Like, and then we booked this with you and I'm like, oh, well now I just want to talk to her about it. And then I'll book with her afterwards.
I know. That's what I was thinking too.
The past life.
Yeah.
I have never had a past life reading done. I don't even know how that works, but I have been very curious probably in the last like year or so of like knowing that there was like the shaman said you were something bigger like you were something very big in another life. And I've had other people say, oh, it wouldn't surprise me if you were a healer in another life or if you were this in another life. And I'm like, I want to know what I was.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would, in the language of healing, I think it would bring me a lot of peace or confirmation in knowing probably what I already know.
Yeah. Well, it's just
but
to
need validation
reconnect or to become familiar again with it. Like, and each past life builds on each other to make you who you are today. Like, this eventually will be a past life for you. It will be an experience that, if we want to talk linear of reality, like, in the future, this will be a past life. And so that will be part of all these past lives you've had to make you then to who you are in that lifetime. So, yeah. So past lives have always been word of mouth on the street for me because I don't advertise it.
Oh, whoops.
Talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Welcome to the world of past life. I love doing the sessions. I have had a session done myself years ago, which is what got me into it. But I take it to a step deeper because I literally have you lay down. I get you into a very meditative state. We get you into kind of that delta theta, relax, try to clear your mind. And then I will guide you into the past and then start to just ask you questions about what you're experiencing. And so you're very relaxed. Your eyes are closed. You're on a table. There's not much thought to come through because as you start to drift into thought, I start to ask the next question. And then I just journal like what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And yeah, I have a series of questions, but then I'll also just based on what you're saying, start to ask you more things. And then once we feel like that life's completed, we journey into, I'll do another kind of guided meditation. And I'll tell you okay, we're going back to a happy time when you were 5 or 6 years old in this lifetime. So we go backwards because one, we want to first establish a happy time that if anything gets uncomfortable, we can go back to that memory of a happy time. And then two, we don't want to go from now to 5 past lives ago. We want to gradually build on it and go back phases in it. And so, I've had everything from people feeling like they were men working in war to somebody on a ship to a female who was a healer. And that's all one person that they've had these past lives to where then all of a sudden it makes them who they are. From there, we can then start to say, okay, well, there's a common theme here. And now let's talk about that common theme in this life. And how does that align? And how can we grow on it? Or how can we shift or become more aware of it so that we can, come into our true light instead of maybe making choices or decisions based on a past life that we didn't understand it. And it's really hindering our experience here in this lifetime.
It kind of, in that book, you're gonna have to read this. She would have these extreme fears of things, an extreme fear of water. And in one of her past lives, she had drowned. Or an extreme fear of somebody being close to her neck. And it turns out in one of her past lives, somebody slit her throat or something crazy. But as she was able to understand them and process them, those extreme fears and anxieties started to dissipate. What I think is interesting and I never used to believe in this stuff before. So this is all.
Well, neither did I.
Which is what?
Y'all are blowing my mind right now, little.
So the whole past life thing, so I'm listening to this, I'm reading this book on the plane. We get off and I'm talking to him about everything that I'm reading in this book. And I didn't know it was about past lives. Someone was like, you should read this book. It's really good. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it. He was listening to a podcast about past lives.
No.
Aubrey Marcus and Matthias DiStefano. And he's like, that's crazy. I was listening to this. And he was like, I've never believed in this stuff before, but I really believe what this guy is saying. And I think that there's this, if it resonates with you, then there's probably some truth to it.
Sure.
A lot of times we forget that our own intuition is pretty legit.
Oh yeah. It's never going to lie.
If it feels like a scam, it's probably a scam. If it feels real, it's probably real. Oh my God, I forgot where I was going with that, but I'm.
So you guys were reading,
you guys were
listening to the same
thing.
Type of stuff. But what I'm starting to believe and realize is all of these past lives, there's kind of what you're saying. There's this pattern because you didn't learn the lessons. And so when you pass, you have to come back into the next life and you have these soul contracts of okay, this time, what do I need to put in my life? Who do I need to choose as my parents? What do I need to learn in this life? How am I going to learn it this time? Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you choose these people to put in your path. You choose the teachers you want with you, and you choose this life so that you can get it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Is that kind of like...
Yeah, because you have to learn lessons. Like, you have to have these lessons placed in your life to become... just like we go through school and we learn lessons and we graduate, like we have to graduate to the light.
Yes.
And so that all is based on this past life experience and soul contract, is being able to get into a space of, okay, what did I not learn very well last past life? What do I need to keep learning here? And then if it's a human experience that you keep having the same lesson, it's like, dude, you're not learning the lesson.
Right.
Like if you're like, this is always hard. Every time I drive down the road, this always happens. It's like, because you're not freaking learning the lesson.
Like it's going to keep showing up until there's also some healing in that, because let me tell you, I feel like I've learned a lot in the last couple of years that I never in a million years would have thought that I would ever learn. So I feel like in this life, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have you ever like gone through an experience where like, you're like, oh damn, the old Leah, I would have reacted. I'll go like
all the time.
Yeah, I'll go like, go Jenny, good job. Like, you just did great, because the old Jenny would have been totally opposite of that.
We do that with each other in like text messages. I'm like, I'm so proud of us.
Yeah, I know.
Like, look how far we've come. But there's also this like lesson in it that, sometimes I see people who are like, there are people in my life still who are very harmful and toxic. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to learn the lessons this time around. They're going to have to come back in the next life, and their life is going to be even harder, and that's their journey. But like, I can't force them to learn these lessons. They're going to have to learn it on their own. So it's almost like it's healing in that way, because I'm like, I don't have to, that doesn't affect me anymore.
Yeah. My cousin and I this weekend, like the first cousin, John, who's older, we were talking. He has an interesting dynamic with one of his siblings, and I have a very interesting dynamic with one of my siblings. The pattern in the family, interestingly enough, is that all of my mom's siblings, their siblings, all have weird dynamics. Like, it's like, I started to see this pattern. Like, I'm closer to some of my cousins than I am my own sibling. So we were talking, and he was asking me about my sibling, and I was just like, man, I just have really had to cut the cord. And it makes me sad, because I'll always say stuff like, blood's thicker than water. I joke with my family, I'm like, blood's thicker than water. All you people that are married in the family, blood's thicker than water. And so like, here I've got this sibling, and she is blood to me, but it's like, we were not meant to have a deep relationship. And that's hard. Many years that's been hard, but I finally come to the acceptance of like, I can't fix her. She can't fix me, because she looks at me with all these faults and I look at her with all these faults. And instead of really accepting each other, and that's what I said to her, one of our last conversations is like, you got to quit telling me how I need to be. You just need, if you don't like how I am, that's okay, but just honor it, like respect it. And she's like, no, you're not respecting me because you're not seeing my point of view. And I'm like, I do see your point of view. I just don't agree with your point of view. There's a difference there.
Right.
And so when I was walking in Texas this weekend with my cousin, he's had a very similar experience with one of his siblings. And he's like, sometimes for your own mental health, you just got to cut him out. And when I heard him say that out loud, I was like, yeah, it's not me giving up on my sibling. It's me saying I'm going back here and taking care of me before I give up on me, because I'm so focused on you.
Right. Well, and that blood is thicker than water quote.
I was literally just about to go there.
What's the full quote?
Blood is thicker. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it's like, it's really been used backwards for a very long time. And I start to see that, I'm kind of going through this, like, not reconnecting with my mom. We didn't have a relationship for over 10 years, but I see her very different now. I have more compassion for her, but there's still a distance, and I keep it that way.
I think you know where to place her now.
I know where she belongs, and, we have the same psychiatrist, so when I, like, reference him by name, it's like, Dr. Shealy. I'm like, he's like, because you don't need her to mother you anymore. Yeah. Because you can do that yourself. Yeah. So the relationship that you have with her is very different.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
But it's the same, you know, I have a disconnect with my siblings as well. And I don't need to have a relationship with you because you're my blood, because I don't know how we can.
Right.
So I'm going to have to keep it the way that it is.
I always say, if you come to me with love, I'll return love.
Yep.
If you come to me with fear and judgment, then I block it because I don't want that frequency around
Yes.
me. I don't want that. And then you get told, oh, you don't care. You don't care about me. You don't, you put everybody else first. You do and that's like, no, actually, I'm just putting myself first.
Right.
And you just happen to be very toxic. And I'm not going to fix that because that's not my job. But I also don't want it in my frequency. So what ends up happening is as I'm over here in this light and she's down here in this dark, like it just never connects. And then, but then you get the pushback from family of like, but you need to have her in your life. You know,
why?
When we aren't here anymore,
way that I relate to this.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not cutting her out of my life. I'm just choosing to keep a lot of space between us in this lifetime. Like, and that's okay. You know, I will always love her because she is family. I will always love her, but I will love her from a distance.
Right.
And I will offer her love and energy and all of that. But like that toxic weight, I don't need that. Like, and from a medium standpoint, that fucks with your energy like you think about, I'm raising my vibration to bring spirit here. When I constantly have this negative shit around me all the time, then I'm not able to get to the light that I need to get to be the medium.
Does it almost like the way that alcohol would cloud that, the way that drugs would cloud that, it almost clouds
like certain energies?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, alcohol, drugs, all of that is of a low frequency.
Yes.
Being depressed. Like people be like, oh, you're always happy. Okay, no, I have moments of being sad. I have moments of depression, but I have to recognize what's making me go to that space and find a way to get out of it so that I can get to that light again.
Well, and the more connected you are to yourself, the more you're like, oh, something's feeling off. Is it certain people I'm around? Is it certain things that I'm doing? And then you can adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
But so many people are so disconnected from themselves.
Earlier, the conversation that you and I were having before you got here about, having to like cut certain people out of our lives because they were like, I was always naturally drawn to sad people because I wanted to help them or make them feel good.
Because you were the light. The reality is you were the light, and that people gravitate to people with light to help fix them.
Yes.
And then we as light are like, oh, I'm a fixer.
Yes.
I can fix this.
Mm-hmm.
I was the dynamic of a fixer in our family dynamic of my dad being an alcoholic. I was the fixer. I was the one that never wanted anyone to fight, so I would cover for him so my mom didn't see it. I'd take care of my sibling. Like, I was very protective to always fix so that there wasn't chaos.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's like, but that where I had to start cutting people out, not because I wanted to. I would set these boundaries, but the boundaries weren't respected or they weren't understood. And I finally had to be like, I can't be swirling in that with you anymore. I used to always be that person who would make you feel good, but then I would come home and then it was almost like I was sucking it out of you and then taking it as my own. Yeah. And that's why I was stuck in depression for so many years because I did that for everybody. So I don't think it's like I don't love my siblings or I don't love my family. I just think now, and maybe for you, I love myself enough to protect myself from going down that again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's taken years for me as well to like accept that and understand it. And not to feel like I'm failing my family because I'm choosing to put myself first. I started to live by this mantra that in order to care for everyone else, I have to care for myself first.
Absolutely.
And like caring for myself is also saying, I'm sorry, I need space. Like I can't keep taking care of your emotional needs, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was just like, I started to also in my own journey, like in trying to figure this dynamic out with family, like I started to put expectations on them. Like, okay, well, I'm doing this, so you should do that. And what I realized is like, when you put an expectation on someone, all you're doing is setting them and you up to fail. Because hell, they don't even know you've put that expectation on them. They think you're just being Jenny and you're nice and you're always going to be Jenny and always be nice. They don't realize that in turn, you're doing that really for an outcome And then you don't get that outcome, and then chaos erupts again because the boiling pot of water has mounted, and you're pissed off that they haven't done what you thought they were going to do because you did that.
And you're exhausted.
And you're cranky and you're exhausted and you're miserable and like all of this. And so earlier this year, I started going like, expectations are truly just to set everyone up for failure. So like if you can go into any sort of an experience with no expectation, you can actually enjoy the entire experience to the fullest because you're embracing it without already having the future thought of what's supposed to happen there.
Yeah.
That's very true also in psychedelic experiences.
Yeah.
Like in order to have the best outcome, you kind of have to surrender and give up any expectations towards what is going to happen or what it's going to be.
You have to just let it be what it is. And
Let
so
it be
many
what it
people
is.
struggle with that because they're like, oh my gosh, well, I'm a control freak and I could never do that. I'm like, it's kind of the point.
But it also
not really
in life,
working
like
for you.
that, I think learning that in doing trips has also helped me to learn that in life, like just surrendering to whatever happens. I don't think I would never considered myself spiritual, and I definitely wasn't religious, but I grew up religious. But through all of this, seeing what I've seen, experience what I've experienced, there has definitely been a shift in like trusting that things will work out.
Yeah.
And I think, you know this, but like before my husband is who he is now, he was like, you can't just say that. Like you have to like have a plan and you have to, you keep saying things are going to work out. And I was like, because I trust that they will. And then when they started working out, he was like, what the fuck? Yeah. But now he believes it because he's seen it happen so many times that he's just like, I mean, it'll work out. I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
My husband said the other day, I don't even remember what it was about, but I was like, my gut just says this. And he was like, well, your gut never lets us down. Like,
right?
And I was like, that's right. It's taken you forever to figure that out.
Yes.
But you're right.
Yes.
So now I'm like,
finally get it.
So now it's just like, okay, when you want something, just be like, my gut says.
My gut says this is what we should be doing. Yeah, that's, I don't know. I'm kind of excited. It's like a weird thing, but like for someone else to have that type of experience for the first time, like I'm excited for you to book with her.
Well, I was going to ask if there was, if you could give listeners any type of little preview of kind of what you do today or no.
Well, I'll tell you this. So I set really clear boundaries when it comes to stuff like this because I don't want to be bothered by them all the time.
I get that.
And so I have to really kind of get into a space in order to start to channel. If I just start to channel out of like the whim, then they never fucking leave me alone.
I was going to ask about that too.
So
like,
I'm
how do you put boundaries with that?
Well, I just try to ignore it. And so most of the time it's like, okay, either I'll like have the music up louder or, I keep myself busy, or I've gotten into a very big practice with like my sleep patterns and like really taking care of my mental health so that my mind isn't always going like this. There are spirits that are pushy. And when they start doing that, I'll say, you figure out how to get her to me. Like you will never see me go up to someone and go like, oh, your grandma's coming through. Like I'll never, first of all, it's 50-50 chance that your grandma's going to come through. Number one. And number two, like they might not be ready to receive it. I might not be in a mindset or space to actually share the authentic message. Like you can let filters come in. That's why a lot of times when people will book, and thankfully I have someone that handles my clients now, but before people would put like in the comments, like, oh, I want to connect with my dad. I'm like, don't freaking tell me. I don't want to know. If people sit down in my chair and they'll go, okay, I really want to hear from my brother. I'm like, stop telling me who you want to hear from. Because the more that I know, the more that my human mind can get in the way. Now, on a Saturdays with Spirit or something like that, I'll be like, do you have a focus? Because sometimes people will come strictly for like one thing and they'll be like, yeah, I want to connect with Spirit. Okay, fine. We'll work on that. Or I'm having an issue with work. I need guidance on that. So I'll sometimes say, do you have a focus? But if it's a private one-on-one session, I'm usually like, let's not say anything. Let's see if Spirit will come through first. Answer whatever you have on your mind. If they don't, then we'll ask them.
I'm excited to see.
And like no expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, don't, if like you want a grandpa to come through and you want him to say like University of Kentucky and he doesn't say that, like, don't get upset that he didn't say that. Like,
right.
Because some people will be like, well, everything you said is right, but I told them they needed to tell you this one thing. And like,
trying to control the situation.
Yeah. I'm like,
experience.
Okay, well, no, they're not.
But that's what's kind of sparking my curiosity is I don't necessarily have like a set goal. Like, cause there's no one that's really passed where I'm like, oh, I really want to talk to them and I want to see what they have to say. Like, I'm just
open.
Yeah.
That makes the experience so much easier for the medium, at least in my own journey, because you can feel when a client comes into you and they have expectations or walls, especially when they get there and they're like,
yeah.
Or they'll be like, yeah, that's that sounds right. It's like, well, shit, why'd you book this session? Like you took something away from someone who probably had to wait 3 or 4 months to get in.
Yeah.
Like, don't waste my time, don't waste Spirit's time, and don't waste somebody else's opportunity to get in and see like a medium. But usually if I get someone like that, I'll just be like, okay, Spirit, buckle up. Here we go. It's going to be the longest 45 minutes of your life, but here we go.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
Okay. I really want Jason to do this too. Yeah. I think he would have a really good experience. He's very, very open now. Mm-hmm. And I think that has a lot to do with it too, because at first when he was like, freaked out by it, I was like, but you're not open to any of this. Like, so of course you're not going to like have any of these experiences.
I think the more that you heal, the more you're open to these kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And also like, I'm okay with the unknown.
Like he used to give me shit for seeing numbers. And now if he sees a number, he'll like screenshot it and send it to me. And I'm like, see, you see them now too.
Well, and I think the more we become like aware, our curiosity expands. Like our awareness, we lessen judgment. We don't have as much space for judgment. And so we are, fear and judgment keep us in this box, in this space. And so the less that we create in that frequency, the more we can create in a space of like openness and like freedom and like, just let it come in. And there's going to be things that come in that's like, still not my jam. Yeah. And that's okay. But you gave it the opportunity to present itself. First being like, hell no, not happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. When's the next Saturdays with Spirit?
Oh my gosh. What are we in December? Okay. February. Second Saturday of February.
Perfect. Because this will be out before then.
Yeah. We take a break in January to reset. And then we're probably going to take a break in July. I haven't told anybody that yet, but now you know.
You're like, I need a break.
Yeah. It just falls like, it's the second Saturday of every month. And that month of July falls on like 4th of July weekend and all that weird stuff. So I'm like, everyone will be everywhere else. So,
and can you kind of describe what Saturdays with Spirit is?
Yeah, because we've kind of talked about it in several episodes, and people who aren't from here or like aren't into any of this are like, why do they keep talking about Saturdays with Spirit?
What the Spirit? What the fuck is this?
So if to all the listeners who have heard us talk about this is Jenny who runs Saturdays with Spirit. Yeah. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so Saturdays with Spirit came about in wanting to create space for my students who were journeying through their own, gifts of whatever sort, to have an opportunity to showcase them. And so ironically, they've all kind of taken a different path. Some are crystal healers, Erica's human design, color therapy. They've all kind of done their own journey. So that was how it was created, was to give these mini sessions, both for the healer to have an opportunity to build their business, and then the community to experience these other modalities without having to book a full session or be scared of what it is. Like they can go in for a quick 15, 20-minute session, figure it out, and see if it's for them. Then when my office moved from this itty-bitty office to the farm out in Crestwood, we had this expansive space. And so at that point, I brought in vendors, because you do have some wait time usually between your healer sessions. So we bring in just mystical vendors, people that have some sort of a connection to the other side, whether it's through crystals, or we had a girl there last month who had cooking with intention. So she makes spices with intention behind the spice blends. So it's all kind of sort of something that is like woo-woo-y. But also, I really wanted the community to have a place that was like normal. Like that didn't feel judgmental. I've gone to psychic fairs before and things like that. That's like, oh, this is kind of dark. Like this isn't my jam. Like, and I wanted it to be just full of light and full of love and all of that. So yeah, so when we open the doors, it's usually a mad rush in to get your name on whatever healer list you want.
This is where I wish I could choose a little violence. We fight to see Jenny.
Yeah. And I have tried so many different ideas on how to tackle that, but it's
basically first come, first serve.
It is what it is, yeah. And so we open the doors 10 minutes before the event actually starts so people can get in. And
I'm going to slip you 100.
Yeah. We had one girl, so we had vendors setting up a few months ago. And I just thought this lady was with one of the vendors setting up. And because she's opening the door and helping this lady in. And I'm not paying any attention. And she goes, okay, I'm just putting my name here and I'm leaving. It was 7:40 in the morning. And I go, oh, no. You're going to have to take that off because you're going to cause a lot of people to fight.
See, I thought about that.
And she was like, oh, I can't. And I'm like, no. And we've had people that now we've had to make this thing you got to be there to sign in because we've had people come in and sign all their friends in. And one lady was like, I drove here from Minnesota. Get out of the way. And I was like, oh, we're going to have a fight in the middle. This is supposed to be light and love, not fighting energy.
Love and light.
Yeah.
Yeah, people start lining up super early because Casey and I got there at 7:30 last time, and there were still people before us.
Yeah, it's insane.
Maybe not 7:30. Doors open at
8:30.
Yeah,
then.
probably
8:30. 8. We got there at 8:30.
Yeah.
So you got to get there early.
Yeah, we're trying to get a little bakery to come out that'll be parked outside so people can get coffee and stuff.
Good.
We're still evolving and growing. But this year I felt was the year of just getting the system of the event together because it is a bit of a production that it wasn't always that way. Someone asked me the other day, oh, are you so excited? And I was like, oh, I'm kind of exhausted because it has turned into a bit of a production. So I'm determined that 2023 is all about the light and love and the joy that I find out of it. That is what made me start the event to begin with.
Right.
And lessen the production of it.
So what you're saying is you just started doing it.
Yeah.
And then by trial and error have learned along the way.
That's 100%. You just do it.
You just do it?
Yeah.
You
don't need validation.
No. Your validation comes when everybody shows up. Because they'll show up. You're going to attract the people that want to know more and want to learn.
Yeah.
A little inside tip right there. So for anybody wanting to book a one-on-one session with you, how can they
can
reach you?
Go to my website, jennyshanks.com.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing today.
Thank you for letting me share.
We got a little this is Jenny. This is who Jenny is.
I like Jenny.
I know Jenny. Not the medium Jenny. I know
no, just the Jenny.
Just Jenny.
I fucking know Jenny.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God.
F-bombs and all.
Yes. Yeah. I freaking love you're like a normal human.
I am, yeah. I'm a normal spirit being.
Okay, so we will put all your information. Did you have any more questions? I'm sorry.
No.
I just kind of took that and was like,
I just want to go see her.
So we'll
so
see
I'll
her.
book that.
Yeah, we're gonna book something for sure, and we'll come back on and talk about our experiences because that's what we fucking do. And to all of our listeners, we'll see you on the other side.